Hello, everybody, and welcome to Cosmere Connections. We're a bunch of Cosmere-loving nerds looking back and rereading the entire Brandon Sanderson Cosmere series. My name is Reader, and I am joined by...
Hey everyone, I'm Wen.
And I'm John.
And I'm Kay.
And I'm Swiggity Swoo.
And today we are going to review / talk about the Mistborn Final Empire Prologue.
Yay!
Yay! Good. So we're going to try to do it kind of section by section. So we're going to start off with Lord Tresting's point of view, then move on to Kelsier's, then move on to Mennis. Was it Mennis or was it the other one?
Mennis.
It was Mennis, yeah.
And we're going to kind of go through those three sections.
All right.
So,
cool.
Does anybody want to do a specific section?
Well, I suppose we should start off at the beginning, right?
Yeah, but I'm asking if, does somebody here want to cover a specific section?
Oh, true.
We should have discussed this beforehand. Okay. Also, please note for both viewers and us, we're going to keep the spoilery stuff until the end, which will come after the theme song. So don't have to worry about it. We'll only be talking about stuff that occurs in this chapter. Good?
Right.
Okay.
100%.
Let's start with the prologue then, with Lord Tresting. So, in this part, so Tresting is...
Wait. Ash fell from the sky.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
It does
right.
start with the most iconic line is that Ash fell from the sky. It's a great opening line.
As long as we ignore the top part.
Yeah,
I
I was
was
gonna
gonna say we have the little journal entry at the very beginning if we want to talk about. But we should save that for the end because that is
It's
just
actually-
like literally a spoiler.
Let's do that at the end of the book, because honestly, I've written it out and it's very small if you write out the entire
Well,
dialogue.
so I think that we need to talk about the little parts at the beginning of the chapters in the spoilers section, because
Right.
there's a lot of foreshadowing in those sections that we can talk about. So
I can say one thing about it that's not really spoilery, though. Just one thing.
Sure.
The opening line is something like, I don't want to get it wrong, so I'll flip.
Sometimes I worry I'm not the hero everyone thinks I am.
Sometimes I worry I'm not the hero everyone thinks I am. Exactly. And when I read that, I immediately thought of Brandon Sanderson himself. Because he's sitting on these 4 novels that he just wrote in his spare time right now, and they made $20 million, and now he's like, oh my god, I literally just wrote these for fun, and now everyone's expecting them to be amazing.
Yeah.
And they probably will be.
They will be.
Probably will be.
Okay. Sorry to take away from you. Kay, the floor is yours.
yeah, okay, sorry, you're good. So it starts off with Lord Tresting, with the line "Ash fell from the sky," which just honestly sets the tone really well, in my opinion, for this series. Because it's a great opening line. It tells you exactly what the world is like and what you're seeing visually if you're when you're reading it. And it goes in and it has Tresting. He is meeting with someone, and you're not quite sure who it is at first, because they don't say. But he's meeting with an obligator, and it is an interesting beginning because it focuses. It's a lord's point of view. It's a nobleman's point of view, for the first part of this chapter, where the rest of the book is not from the nobleman's point of view. So you see what the Ska are like through the nobleman's point of view, and he sees them as very lowly, where they don't want to do anything, where they have to be pushed into their work.
They're just Ska.
Yeah, they're just Ska, which
After
is
all.
yeah. which becomes a theme with the ska, where they're seen as like they're just ska. Like what else? What can you expect from them?
Like the same kind of like, oh, that's just a pigeon.
Yeah, it's the same kind of like feeling and the same kind of vibe. So so Tresting is meeting with an obligator because he is uh planning he's setting up a deal with House Venture.
That name will be important later.
Yes, it will be very important later. Which is one of the great houses in Luthadel. So he's setting up a deal with House Venture, and Lord Venture sent one of his own obligators to oversee the deal. So Tresting was very excited about that because it means that Venture really wants this deal to happen. And so he's thinking about how an obligator agrees with the deal and tells him that he has his support, that Tresting has his support, and that he's going to go and tell Lord Venture that Tresting is a good person to do business with and put in a good word for him with their contract. And as the obligator is leaving, Tresting is thinking to himself, oh, if I push the ska a little bit more, we can probably get another harvest in. So he's kind of thinking of them the ska just as like animals, like working
Or even
animals.
machinery.
Or like machinery, which is a very distinctive way to think about it. And then he looks out on the ska and he sees someone look up at him. And
And who do we think that is?
yeah, who do we think that is?
And that person smiles.
And
Yes, I
person
think he
smiles.
does smile. I was trying to
Yeah.
remember. I was looking through to try to remember if he smiled or not.
I think it was a look of defiance. Or
Yeah.
I think it was just
defiance.
Here it is. The man met Tresting's eyes, a spark, no, a fire of defiance showing in his expression. Tresting had never seen anything like it, not in the face of the ska. Tresting stepped backwards reflexively, a chill running through him as the strange, straight-backed ska held his eyes and smiled.
Ah,
Yeah,
right. Everybody
nice.
wins.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Okay, but even if like it didn't say he smiled, 100% Kelsier as he's disappearing is
I
like
mean-
giggling underneath his cloak.
Knowing what Kelsier is from future readings, yeah, you're 100, no question. But a couple of points that I wanted to kind of, as looking back on my first reading. So at this point, don't really know what an obligator is.
Nope.
We don't really understand that it's it's a person that's both related to politics and religion. We don't understand really what the politics of the land and the religion, how they're related. And
They do say they do say he's a functionary kind of.
They do.
They do yeah, they use that word.
And they do mention the Steel Inquisitors, so we kind of have an idea that they're related to that.
And he
But-
threatens with the Steel Inquisitors.
Correct. So we know
If
they're
there
the big
was a-
scary.
Mhm.
But we
After
also,
the comment about if he's sleeping with ska women,
right, which
and
is our
apparently that's a
Sorry,
big
go ahead.
no-no. Sorry.
the other thing that I was going to say is we don't really have a good grasp of what it means to be a ska, right? Like we know now from having read the book that they're just people, basically. But at this point, when I was reading it the first time, I'm like, well, what's a ska? It's obviously some kind of humanoid, but is it a human or is it a social class? Is it what? And we
I felt
find
the
that
same
out
way.
obviously later in this prologue. But at this point, during this viewpoint, way they're looked at is as the other. They're not. They're beneath. They're very separate. So when I read it the first time, at least, I didn't really know what he meant by ska. I was like, what is this?
Yeah, I was actually like kind of not surprised, sorry. But I even like in my mind they were like treated as slaves by the nobility, especially like in the land. But reading that they actually like talk about them as people. I don't remember the line exactly, but they do say they're people. So I was like, okay, they're still like they don't call them
Mhm.
slaves actually, but yeah, I think I was amazed once again at the genius of Sanderson because in just those few lines, there's so much world building happening.
Mhm.
They talk about a lord, so you get the sense of like nobility. You have an obligator. You have ska mentioned. You have the ash, which is like the whole word and environment of the thing. You
Mhm.
have a deal. You have mentions of Luthadel, which is the main city of the country, and so do you say capital?
Yeah.
Capital, yeah. Um, and so there was so much stuff happening. Like once, especially like once you've read the entire series and you know what happens after that,
Mhm.
you get so much details in just a few lines. I was actually like really impressed again.
Mhm. You'll never, on your first read, probably recognize, oh, this is Strath Venture that he's dealing with, who does
Yeah,
become a pretty important character down the line. But I
that
also
was a
want to
big ring
comment,
for me.
though, I also want to comment that we not only was ash falling from the sky, but there's also a separate comment that the sky is red,
Yeah, that too.
which is completely, you think fantasy and you think blue skies and green forest or Mount Doom with black sky, but this is a complete red sky, red sun with ash falling down. Which, if you've lived in California at during the summertime, you know exactly what this is like.
I found this interesting because I had picked up Mistborn after reading through the Stormlight archives, and from what everyone had said, Roshar was such a completely different and alien world, the most alien that Brandon has written. So
Mhm.
when I picked this up, for it to be so different and so alien on its own, kind of blew me away because I wasn't expecting it. Like, how could you outdo yourself? And I think Brandon really has.
Mhm. Great. Is there anything anybody wants to comment more on part one?
I have written down Tresting is disgusting.
Uh-huh.
Oh yes.
You-
But
It's
we
like
can
how
talk about that in the next part
okay.
So yeah,
when we actually kind of see that.
That will definitely escalate.
Tresting mentions that there's a young girl in a young
Who's
ska girl that he's been looking
caught
at,
his eye.
who has caught his eye, who he's probably gonna like it's implied that he's gonna grab her tonight and like rape her.
In which, perfect segue, we do see in Kelsier's point of view, which I know is like a little bit in the middle or towards the end of it, we do see that. And the most disturbing comment probably during that part, not only is this a child and Scott should not have beautiful daughters, but the fact that no, he's a law abiding citizen. After he sleeps with them, he has them killed in a few weeks.
Can I read? Can I read? It
Absolutely.
says,
Please do.
I have been satisfied regarding your actions, Ga women. What I've seen and heard here indicates you always clean up your messes. A man such as you, efficient, productive, could go far in Luthadel. Gross.
But
Like
we can now.
that just lays out their whole attitude towards it, doesn't it?
Uh-huh. In which now we can backtrack. So night has now fallen. It's now the workday has ended. Time cards have been punched. Everybody's in their hovels. They don't even get houses or sheds; they get hovels. In which we're now following Kelsier, who is one of, if not the main character of this book. In which we follow him. He's the man who looked up and at the Lord Tresting, and he's the one who gave him that look of defiance. And he's in the mist, and that's another thing that is really fabulous to this world building is that the night the mist comes out, in which you never really think about it, but it's this huge enveloping white kind of essence. And Kelsier enters the hovel, and it's not really drawn upon until like when he tries to leave, but everybody kind of backs away as the mist kind of enters the building hovel, and Kelsier shuts the door, and he's like, "Hello, everybody, I'm here."
Those are like his first
gets
words.
chewed out. He immediately gets chewed out by the leader person for dipping off.
Tepper. Tepper.
Yeah,
Yes,
Tepper.
Tepper. That was the name. Thank you.
The one who likes to think he's in charge.
Yeah, the Tepper for dipping off in the middle of the workday, which he did earlier. And Tepper is like, "Why'd you do that? Like, when we harbor
Runaways.
runaways, we expect them to do their work. Like, why did you just disappear in the middle of the day? You could have gotten everyone around you whipped and beaten."
Didn't he say
because
that
of
the
what
group
you
did
did.
get whipped?
I don't think he specified that the group did get whipped. I think he said that they could have gotten whipped.
Yeah, I think it was they could have been.
Oh, okay. I thought I remembered they did because he also made the comment like, "Oh, that doesn't matter. I've seen group of ska that get beaten just for blinking inappropriately."
Yeah.
Which,
Yeah.
holy cow, is that a hard to swallow concept? But if you think about and I don't know how this is for other countries, but American history, I can 100% see that, and that is kind of the aspect of the story is kind of a racism thing. But what's really interesting is that there is no real race, it's more of a class system, which kind of ties back to like English history with the only way you really knew a noble was by if you had their family tree line that had the crest, everybody else was peasants. So you couldn't really fake being a noble unless somebody else had the proof. And I think it's impressive and kind of ties into the fact that Brandon Sanderson makes one of these lead slaves a white guy to kind of have that be, hey, look at the white people, see how they are also being treated how we treated them, kind of for a way for white people to see that. Granted, how do I put this?
No, I think I kind of I think I maybe see what you mean. Like the way that, so obviously American history, it was like black people and slaves, but here it's not even about like color, just like meaning somehow that human can be treated like that for basically anything, and that some people at this point of history chose a reason, and here you can see it's a complete other reason, and that it's really arbitrary
Mhm.
in a sense. I don't know if that's what you mean, but that's what I'm getting.
Yeah, I
At
think
this point
taking
in the
away
story, it very much appears arbitrary, and that's something we'll get into when we get into, I think is where
Later
we'll
down
find
the
out
line.
where the
Later
ska
down the
history
line.
is. Later down the line, yes.
I think taking away any kind of physical attributes that separate them does kind of equalize it, so that it's just like making that point even clearer that it's just a class.
There's
just
no
black.
real line between a ska and a noble
There's
outside
no
of
reason. Yeah.
lineage.
I would like to point out that there actually is.
Oh, yeah.
Can we say that for the spoilers section though?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sure. Yep.
I know exactly what you're talking about, but that's far off spoilers.
I know. I just wanted to like.
It kind of references it in this part. It says
Yeah,
there's like a line. You can go ahead.
wait, let me.
Does it
like-
actually make a comment about?
It
Man, the
says,
reader.
you have to kill the ska women because they don't want them breeding, and ska shouldn't have powers that they aren't even supposed to know about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but that's the social side of it again. That's not the physiological differences that are
Yeah.
very, very minute
Mhm.
that canonically do exist, although they're not directly referenced in.
Yeah. So Kelsier is now in the hovel. He's told to leave, so he makes a move to leave. He opens the door. The mists come in once again, and everybody kind of panics. In which we're told, I think, and I quote, "Men who venture into the mist lose their souls."
Which is
So-
a great, eerie, just chilling quote.
Because now
Gives
we've
you
got
goosebumps
ash
to
from the sky, and now this mist thing that's going on. So Kelsier, being the nice person he is, shuts the door and sits down to tell his story. And he talks about how, and it's kind of uncertain, but to the north and to the west, there's kind of good nobles. And he talks about this guy, Lord Renaux, however you pronounce it. Granted, it's kind of French, so maybe the French
Renew.
version.
Renou. In French, it's
Yes.
Renou.
Okay.
In the audiobooks, it is pronounced Renault or Renew.
Okay.
And it
Renew.
was meant to be French sounding.
Mhm.
Yep.
Because I know that like some of the other characters are supposed to be more German. This one definitely seems to have more of a French aspect to it.
Definitely.
Tepper calls Kelsier Survivor when he sees the scars on his arms. Am I wrong?
No, you're right.
You are
Am
correct.
I right? Okay. You're shaking your head, so I thought, shoot, did
No,
I
I was
mess
like,
something up?
because so much like hee hee. So much like
Yeah.
because when you know, but yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
In which he comments, we've only seen those scars. In which Kelsier has his sleeves down, and you see scars all up and down his arms, covering a good portion of them. Very little actual skin left. We've got a drawing of it that's really cool.
Wow.
Show off.
I mean,
That's
he can.
cool.
I can't help it.
In which we're told that the only other person who had scars like that was sent to the pits of Half-Sin, and that he returned his body because he was trying to escape or was a runaway.
Can I just say, one of the coolest sounding locations of any fantasy series, the pits of Half-Sin. Like, how do you come up with
Yeah.
that?
Therefore, he had been.
He has
That was every time I hear it. That's what goes through my head, and I love it.
like it's like
Awesome.
it's the two words put together that make this really fantasy kind of threatening. Like, hello Mount Doom, hello pits of Half-Sin. Eat your heart out, Tolkien.
Yeah, right.
Kelsier then offers food that he stole from Lord Tresting's keep. I don't think keep is the right word, but his house.
Manor.
Okay. In which Mennis comments, and I love this line: "New tastes are like new ideas. ... The older you get, the more difficult they are to stomach."
I like
Which
that
that
line
is,
too.
I love that line. And basically, Kelsier gives all the food to the Ska in the hovel. They eat it hungrily because the food that they have is basically just boiled water with a few, like, basically dirt in it or whatever dead plants they have laying around.
Very, very few nutrients in it, but
Mhm.
just enough for them to like survive.
Mhm.
Yep.
Which just shows how well these noblemen care about their Ska.
Hey, they're only ska.
Uh-huh. And
Hmm.
Kelsier comments that he snuck into the manor to steal the food, and that kind of sets up this is a guy who can sneak into a well-guarded place in broad daylight.
And to really drive the point home, he says something along the lines of, because I can't quote it from memory, his larder, his pantries are really very lackluster. They're not impressive, which makes you go, wait a minute. How many times has this guy done this that he thinks this is like
Not
just
good
kind of
food.
like average? Yeah.
I think the other line about how his taste in food, while poor, his taste in guards was good. And that also kind of showcases Kelsier's skill in this area, which we don't know if he's using, and I'm going to say allomancy because that is the magic system. Instead of saying magic, we do not know if he used allomancy or not to do
I
that.
think at this point we don't even know that it exists. I don't think it's even been mentioned yet.
No, that was the next comment.
Yeah, okay.
I was gonna say that it says, and where Kelsier says, I found the quote. And might I add that while your lord's taste in food is deplorable, his eye for soldiers is far more impressive. Sneaking into his manor during the day was quite a challenge.
in which we've got to know Kelsier could not have been spotted and could not have killed a guard. Otherwise, that would have caused stuff to happen.
Pandemonium.
Which could have led to him being caught. Then the girl screams, Jess's daughter, who is supposedly, most likely, the girl that Lord Tresting had commented earlier. And very briefly, we see the first use of allomancy in in Mistborn, where Kelsier burns tin, and his senses are heightened. In which he can hear throughout the mist, he can hear like the mom trying to keep her daughter away from. They don't really say soldiers, but I read it as like a soldier's taking the daughter away. And she comments like he could feel the cloth on his arms. He can hear the dirt moving.
I imagine he can like feel the ripples of the wood in like his butt cheeks on the stool he's sitting on. Like,
oh,
it's
this
really
thing is
intense.
270 years old, 271.
Which
Though,
it does say that he could feel the grain on the wood stool
Yeah.
beneath him. Like, so yes, he could.
There you go.
Oh, boy.
Yep. Why do you think it was just tin for this first scene? You think he's introducing all this stuff. It shows some restraint to just have one allomantic power be displayed in this prologue, I think.
And
It's
I think
enough
you
to
hit it
draw
right
you
on the
in.
head. It's there's so much stuff that's been introduced to throw all of the
10.
is it 10 at this point? 10 base metals at you
Yeah.
in the prologue would just be like, I can't keep track of this anymore. You know.
In which Kelsier now gets angry. Oh shoot, I wanted to comment before that. Tepping comments, why do you smile? And he says it's the one battle that the Lord Ruler can't really fight against. And that it's easiest to fight.
And I think that that's really a good showing of Kelsier's character. And right before that as well, when Mennis makes a comment where he says, I fear your visit will bring us grief. And Kelsier responds with, that's why I didn't contradict him, referring to Tepper. At least not on the troublemaker point. In fact, I'd say calling me a troublemaker is probably the only accurate thing Tepper has said since I got here, which I feel like is just a very good description of Kelsier and just a very good introduction of who he is as a person, because he is a troublemaker. He's there to stir up trouble. He's there to cause a mess. He's there to cause a ruckus. That's why he's there.
And we're going to see what that mess is very quickly. So Kelsier, to defend the girl, Jess's daughter, gets up and leaves. And then it kind of fades to black. Who would like this last part?
I mean, I guess I could take it.
Okay.
So the next part opens up from Mennis's perspective, and it talks about how old he is and how he is having a hard time just getting out of bed these days. You know, being an elderly Ska is not easy. But it talks about how he has to, because these people look up to him and they need him. And one of these days he's going to just let the taskmaster come and beat him for not showing up to work. But, you know, today ain't one of those days. So he gets out of bed. He has to lean on a younger Ska to even kind of make his way to the fields.
You should get life alert.
Yeah. The first thing he notices is that it smells like smoke. And his buddy is like, it always smells like smoke, dude. And he says, no, but this is deep smoke. This is something new. Something happened last night. And we see a bunch of Ska gathered around. And Mennis says, why are there no taskmasters coming to whip us into shape? Where are the soldiers to come count our population? Something happened last night. And then we can see that Jess and her daughter are actually together, and the daughter's safe. You know, she looks pretty tired, but she's unharmed. And then they find out that Tresting's manor no longer exists. It's just a blackened scar smoking in the distance. And
Scars?
the little
Kelsier?
some would say
that's
he's
a
the
connection.
lord of them. The daughter basically says, I was with Tresting. He heard some noises. He went to check them out, and then that Scar guy came back and took me out of there. And Tresting was dead, stabbed to shit. And then he burned the place down as we left. And she seemed like she could not be more thrilled about it, which I loved.
Oh, yeah.
Not only trusting though, she does say like everyone was dead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Soldier, taskmasters, lords, dead.
But
Even
definitely
one.
trusting with the daggers in his chest.
Yeah, he said like everyone in the manor was killed, other than her. She was the only one who was
Kelsier
in the
leaves
manor
no
at that time.
survivors.
Yeah,
Survivor leaves no survivors.
Exactly.
which definitely shows the ruthlessness of
Mhm.
Kelsier. The fact that he didn't leave a single person alive that was in that manor besides that ska woman, that
Mhm.
ska girl.
I think this is the perfect story to introduce us to Kelsier, because it just shows the way he thinks of solutions to problems,
Mhm.
and it shows what can maybe happen in the aftermath of those solutions. Because Mennis then goes on to say, well, I guess we're going to have to rebel now. He basically left us no choice.
Mhm. That I think shows more of Kelsier's creativity and skill is not only does he kill every single one of those, but he forced them. Now you have to rebel. That more so is just his bloodthirsty hatred for nobles. Anybody who abuses Scott is on his to kill list. But this is he planned this out this way so they would have to, and he told them the story of Lord Renew and the caves for this reason.
True. Because they do go to those caves that come up later. They
Mhm.
mention them in this prologue, and I totally missed that the first time.
Same.
Is that it for the prologue?
I do want to comment on one thing that one of the ska in the background calls Kelsier a mist wraith,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they do mention the Mistwraiths.
which
Um,
there's no reference to it at all. Just somebody says mist wraith.
No, they say that they thought that Jess's daughter. So Jess's daughter comes and bangs on the door at
That's
night,
true.
and Jess lets her in, and the other ska are like, "Don't let her in. She's a mist wraith." And then Jess brings her out in the sunlight, and she's like, "See, I brought her out into the sunlight, and she didn't disappear, so she's not a mist wraith.
Mhm.
So she's actually my daughter." So
Mhm.
it's the first reference to mist wraiths and to the idea that there might be creatures that can steal people's faces and look
Yeah,
like people that they're not actually.
because that's how they say they thought the mist wraith was imitating Jess, not that it was her without her
Possessing
soul or
her.
anything, but imitating her.
Mm-hmm.
I have questions, but I feel like they're spoilery.
Okay.
we'll definitely do questions during that section because there's a couple of little things that would be worth exploring. I think
Okay.
in that fashion.
So all in all, this was a really great, very hook introduction to the Mistborn series. We got world building from just how the Scadrial, the planet, is described with ash and the red sky, to the kind of government aspect of obligators, steel inquisitors, and this Lord Ruler guy, who may or may not be important, who owns all the ska somehow.
Oh yeah, sorry, I think we didn't mention that, but he doesn't say that the ska come from a king or anything. They say from a god. They actually call him God, and just
Yeah.
they rent ska from God.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a throwaway line, too.
Yeah. And then we see kind of from both the noble's point of view of how life is, and then from I don't want to say a normal Ska's point of view because we learned that he has some form of magical powers, at least limited to super hearing
Well,
and
we
super
get a
senses.
normal Ska through Mennis.
We do see that, yes.
But we also get this sort of still mysterious, possibly supernatural view from Kelsier. We know there's more to him than meets the eye.
It even sets up what the Koloss are a little bit, because it's like, oh, he'll bring
Mhm.
his Koloss troops down here. It's
Yes.
like,
Mhm.
you don't know what that means, but you can kind of infer it's like a big bad army of some kind.
Yep.
Yeah, it invokes the word Colossus to me, and so you think just big, hulking
hmm
Yeah.
question mark?
I never realized that.
Got everything.
Yep.
It really does. There's so much just world building and story driving and setup and holy cats, the foreshadowing.
Yep.
It's intense.
Absolutely. Okay. So, does anybody want to say anything before we move on to the spoiler section? Nope.
I want to touch on major themes. So we obviously have this big theme of sort of slavery that is put forth. We know
Mhm.
that's going to be a big topic going forward. We also see, the defiance and the rebellion, Kelsier, and we see this like depressed, downtrodden, we've lost, we're never gonna
Mhm.
win sort of attitude, not just through the other Ska, but through the world itself. I mean, he talks about the plants being kind of sad and pathetic, and that they're brown and kind of wilty and unimpressive. He's like, why even bother going around them? They're so measly anyway. you
Mhm.
know so we get this definite sense of oppression and just it's never gonna be, we are at the bottom.
Yeah.
Was there any other themes that anybody else picked out that I didn't think of off the top of my head?
I do
Oh.
want to say, oh, you can go ahead, Juan.
Thank you. Just at the very beginning of Kelsier's part, he does mention his kind of what will be described as his dream, but he had heard whispers of times when once long ago the sun had not been red, times when the sky hadn't been clogged by smoke and ash, when plants hadn't struggled to grow, and when Ska hadn't been slaves. So there's already this mention of like how it hypothetically could have been before,
Mhm.
and that kind of nostalgia that Kelsier has around it, which is kind of key, I think, to his
Mhm.
whole character.
Which
And
is
you
also
also get the sense that you understand that this isn't always how the world was. Something happened to it that caused it to become this way, with the ash falling and the brown wilted plants and the Ska being slaves. Something caused that to happen.
and that's going to be a long-running mystery.
Huh.
I was gonna say that Kelsier is like so far the only like ray of sunshine in this world, really.
Uh-huh.
If you want to call a mass murderer ray of sunshine, yeah.
Yeah. But they were only nobles.
I can't imagine like setting someone up for me to be okay with them getting murdered more than they do with Tresting in this book.
Yeah, that is so true.
That's true.
Like he's a slave driver, he's an abuser, he's a pedophile. Like, yeah, this guy can kind of die.
Yeah.
And he's like trying to make it like more optimized too.
Do you want to give a shout out to Kurdon, the taskmaster, who's probably just there to support a family? Doesn't really care either way. He's just all beat those slaves. Okay. I got money. We've
you
all
do
been in
that
that job.
I don't see any
Okay.
difference, but if you say so.
Never needed a reason to beat Ska before.
I'm getting paid to do it? Okay. So I think that'll do it for our spoiler-free section. In case that is all that you are going to listen to tonight, thank you so much for listening in, and we hope to see you in the next episode where we'll be covering the Final Empire Part 1. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Time.
And welcome back! This is our spoiler section. Does anybody have any certain things they want to talk about, or should we go back through kind of everything?
I definitely want to talk about the part at the very beginning before the chapter starts.
Mhm.
End of the
'Cause
whole
there's
series.
just a lot of stuff in that. And something that I specifically noticed that I just really enjoy that we hear later on at the very end of the series, but where it says, like, they say I will hold the future of the entire world on my arms.
And it's right there!
Which
It's
is
right
right
there.
there! Which
Second
then
paragraph!
second paragraph, paragraph 2, right there.
Ah!
And
Mind blown.
then at the very, and then once we get to the very end of the series of book 3, right at the end,
Not
David
in my arms.
remembers that line. He remembers that line, and it says, and that's what causes him to look down at his metal mines on his arms,
Uh-huh.
and to realize that he is the one who's supposed to take up the powers, and become
In which they
the
actually
hero of
name drop
ages.
Hero of Ages right there.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think one of the great bits of that whole process, and I know we're getting ahead in the story. This is the spoiler section. That's what it's for. You know, read later on that they talk about holding the future of the world in his hand, and it's until he goes back and brings those memories out of his metal mind that Ruin can't touch that he goes, wait a minute, there's the disconnect. And
No. Because Ruin can tamper with metal mines.
Yeah,
I
that's
thought
what.
I thought he couldn't tamper with the memories in the metal minds, but he was tampering with the words that they were writing on the pages.
No, because that's why Kawan was so ostracized, is because he had perfect memory himself, but everybody else's metal minds were saying something else.
Yeah, that's what John. No.
Okay.
It was only if it was inscribed in metal. Only that inscribed in metal can be trusted.
Oh.
I write these words in steel.
For anything not, yeah.
You're right.
But yeah, he could alter metal minds.
It was that Sazed
Okay.
had noticed things that were like slightly different from what he had originally remembered,
Mhm.
and then he looked back at his metal minds, and they were changed there, and they matched what
Yeah.
it said on the page, and he was confused. He was like, "Oh,
My memory
I'm-
says one thing, but
but my metal minds can't be wrong,
Mhm.
so I must just be
Okay.
misremembering."
I do remember him saying that now. You're right. I take it all back. My memory is clearly imperfect. I should invest in one of those bracers.
Yeah, you need a unlocked copper mind.
Yep.
Yeah.
Dang, imagine the future when they can like hook up a projector to a metal mine and you could just watch what a person sees.
Whoa.
Oh man. Oh man. I'm having like, oh man. You imagine if a Lightweaver and a Keeper got together, the
Oh,
things
that would be
that they
so
could
cool.
produce. Oh wow. Okay.
Okay,
Now
but
we're
that's
getting into unwritten stuff here.
yeah. Let's stop with that. That was wind
Oh,
it back.
Back in.
Okay.
Focus back in on Mistborn.
Okay.
So for
Since
listeners,
we-
I want you to know this takes considerable effort to not just go completely off the rails.
Off the rails.
right.
Yeah.
It really does.
Everything is connected. You don't understand.
Every Cosmere fan ever, like. Let's
It's-
see. There was one thing I wanted to add on that part. Was like, so it's in Final Empire, but the way that one of the ways that Vin actually understands who the Lord Ruler is, and like one of the ways she identifies and just like pierce through all of it is like the huge difference she perceives between the guy in the book and the actual Lord Ruler. And one of the main point of that is the self-doubt that the author of this
Alendi.
which will be a
The
book.
Alendi.
Yeah,
Alendi.
And that's already there. Like, do they think that? Like, do they doubt too? Like, do they
I
wonder?
doubt it. Do they doubt it? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that was already there, and I was like, man, he's he's doing it great. He's doing
hmm
yeah.
Really good. Since that's technically at the start, we can technically work back down chronological order. In which, so we're back at the Tresting, in which I think the main thing that I wanted to bring up was the fact that the Lord Ruler and the Ska rule, and how the Lord Ruler makes it so you cannot sleep with a Ska past a month is to hide allomancy and to prevent people like Kelsier, Vin, Breeze, Dox, Spook, and
Nope,
our
not
beloved
Dox.
characters like not Dox, sorry. I always
Not
get Dox.
Dox, and also Breeze is also a full-blooded nobleman.
He is?
Yes,
Yeah,
he is.
he is. He is. He's a full-blooded nobleman. He just got sick of noble society, and so he decided that he wanted to become a ska thief instead, and so he did that.
I love
Much
Breeze.
like
This is why Breeze is one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Breeze is
So-
awesome, but I will always be a fan of Hammond. I love the warrior philosopher thing he's got.
Oh
going on.
yeah, their commentary is amazing.
Yeah, but I love Dachshund because he just cracks me up.
He's the mortal among gods.
Yep.
Yeah, he is. He truly
In which
is.
I do want to say, in the Mistborn movie, supposedly somebody is going to be turned female because it is pretty much a sausage fest. with
Ham
just-
Ham and Dox. Ham
I would
and
be.
Dox.
I am completely happy with them being turned female. I am 100%, as long as they don't try to push a relationship between Dox and Kelsier.
Oh no.
As
No,
long as
I
that
hope
is not
not.
pushed, I'm perfectly happy with gender swapping.
Yeah, I hope not. That would be
I
horrible.
think Ham would be a good one though, because I think Brandon was talking about how like the whole thing with allomancy is like, you don't have to be big and strong to be powerful. Like that's
Mhm.
why having Vin get allomancy is like such a powerful theme, because she can stand up for herself now. But so I think Ham would be a good example of that, because it's like his
'Cause
whole thing is being the strong guy.
Yeah. And also,
So-
Doxon is that mortal among gods thing, and to have him be that character as a female to like stand by all these people would be kind of a message with that. Granted, we already have Finn, who's the most powerful one of them all.
Right.
Yeah, but
And
she's
the thing
cheap.
about the thing about Ham and his family too, I think could be great like in the other way around, because later on we learn that he does have a whole family on the side, and that
Mhm.
he just like barely sees them and everything. And
Easily
that
just
would,
make it a father. Boom, done.
yeah.
Or
Yeah,
have it
true.
be a gay relationship. Who cares?
Oh, it's cool. Yeah. No, that would be like interesting to see how it turns out.
Yeah.
But is there anything else in Lord Tresting's point of view that is kind of spoiler related? We've got. Do we want to talk about Staff Venture at all, or is it just like we know he exists?
Do we?
Well,
I think we need to mention a whole lot about Strap Venture, because it's just like we have a very brief mention of him. We know he's going to be a character later on. There's not really any information on his character or like who he is at all mentioned in this part. It's just like a name drop. And not even a full name drop, just
Yeah.
like
it's Lord Venture.
Lord
Yeah.
Venture. So
But it does almost kind of put in your mind that Lord Venture is kind of really powerful, because we see he has business dealings, and we see firsthand that he's doing that. The other ones, like we're
Yeah.
told, they're powerful. But here, we've already got that Venture is doing stuff thing.
Yeah.
Which is strange considering what they do for the Lord Ruler.
That is a little strange, because Venture is in charge of the ATM, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Yes, yeah.
I guess
Sorry, this
it's
is
to
only
keep
my second time.
appearances. I guess it's to keep appearances that they're not doing that.
Because then
Yeah, I
everyone
think
would.
it's actually like explicitly said somewhere that they had to kind of put on a cover to
Mhm.
hide all of this stuff happening behind scenes.
I guess that would make sense.
Cool.
So then we go back to Kelsier, the douche, because now we can say if we dislike him right now or not.
Honestly,
Can I say on my second reread? I'm liking him.
Yeah, it's like at this point in time, I don't really dislike Kelsier. In
I love
this
him.
book series, I don't dislike Kelsier. As
Exactly.
Sanderson has said, in this series,
Kelsier's
Kelsier is a hero. If he were put into any other story,
Mhm.
he would be a villain. But because of he is what the world needed,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and he is the hero that this world needed. So, like, I might not agree, with him killing everyone in the manor. I think that's a little excessive, Kelsier. Don't
Well, we see that he has like a no care limit for you're either a ska or you're not. You're either ska or you get a knife to the chest.
Yeah.
Speaking of knives, it's interesting to me that given the traditional weapons of a Mistborn, that they didn't comment on the knives being unusual.
Did she comment that they were glass knives? Well, it's
No, they just
we're
said that he
see-
had knives in the chest.
well,
That
it's a
was,
little
yeah.
girl saying it.
True.
It's a little
Well,
girl
no, she's not
describing
a
it.
little. I mean, she's a teenager at least.
Is she? I always read it as like a child.
I was always under the impression that she was like 14.
I read
Yeah.
it as like an 8-year-old, and that made it worse for me.
I totally agree. That would make it worse, but
Maybe the fact that it's not age specific makes it kind of like that, up for interpretation.
Also, does Scott age at the same rate as like a human? Because I'm pretty sure
Like-
there's something to that actually.
there is. If you, I don't know how in depth they get in the actual novels, but I think it's in the Mistborn role playing game books. If you've ever seen
that's not.
those, well, they're canon because they're written by Brandon, or at least in part by Brandon. It does
Yeah.
talk about how Ska tend to have more children. They tend to have more multiple births. They
Yes.
tend to be a little bit more hardy, but shorter of stature, as
That
compared to a
was-
noble.
It is mentioned briefly in one of the books. I don't remember which one, but it is mentioned that Ska are generally shorter.
Mhm.
They do have more children.
Here, I'll grab the
They're
back.
sturdier, but as opposed to the noblemen who tend to be taller in stature, and they tend to have less children. But because of the inbreeding between the Ska and the noblemen, for 1,000 centuries, the differences aren't as distinct anymore.
Right.
The differences aren't as distinct anymore by the time that we get to this series. But they're still there a little bit. I don't remember which book it's mentioned
Here it
in.
is. It's in. See, I wrote all these out. I went
Right.
through the book and I wrote all that top part out.
My God.
Is it-
So
Is
this
it-
is from the Hero of Ages, and it's Sazed, and I call it the Word of Founding, which
Mm.
we can't really prove. The balance, is it real? We've almost forgotten this little bit of lore. Ska used to talk about it before the collapse. Philosophers could discuss it a great deal in the 3rd and 4th centuries, but by Kelsier's time it was mostly a forgotten topic. But it was real. There was a physical-logical difference between Ska and nobility. When the Lord Ruler altered mankind to make them more capable, spoilers, of dealing with Ash, he changed other things as well. Some groups of people, the noblemen, were created to be less fertile, but taller, stronger, and more intelligent. Others, the Ska, were made to be shorter, hardier, and have many children. The changes were slight, however, and after 1,000 years of interbreeding, the differences had been largely erased.
So there you
that's,
go.
That's what I erased off. I have the whole thing. I got a binder of every single one, organized by book, organized by what the letter is.
That's gonna be
need
extremely
that.
helpful.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
If only I'll remember it to have it on me.
So they don't really like. So they age the same, but they just have more kids and they're a little bit sturdier, stockier.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
They can survive the beatings easier.
Oh yeah, I forgot. They also are supposed to. Well, that's hardier, I suppose, being able to heal
Yeah.
and recover.
Yeah.
Which, no, that's not a concept I want to get into yet.
I feel like I know what you're about to say. I don't know.
Which kind of brings up, how do noblemen get snapped? Capital S.
Ooh.
Like, it is you are about to die, something inside you awakens.
Yeah.
Like, I'm still wondering about this in Era 2. How does this happen?
They do
They
say
never explain that?
Eland. Yeah, Eland.
Elon
Does
says, like,
say-
they beat him or something.
Yeah, they do. I think they go to a point like maybe teenager, like period, where they do get a bidding to actually see if they snap or not. I
Mhm.
think he does mention that.
Yeah, but we also know that Vin snapped in childbirth, which is a really strange concept. And that due to her, I think it is abnormal concept. I got it written here somewhere.
Yeah, I'm not remembering that piece of information. I thought it was when she got her earring that she snapped.
Give me a second. It's on the last page. I know this. This is my favorite one to reread.
Yeah, I would say it is mentioned that she did snap in childbirth. Was that her childbirth was extremely difficult.
Snapped so early in life, coming to her powers even as she went through the pains of an unusually difficult labor her mother went through to bear her.
Huh.
Yep. She was born a Mistborn.
Yeah.
That's really cool. But like Era 2, how are they still doing this? Do they have beat chambers where, hey, come see if you're a Metaborn?
I think what I remember is that Sazed made it easier for the powers to emerge, so that the beatings didn't have to be as harsh, for someone to snap. I could be making this up. I do not have any sources to back myself up with this, but I think I remember reading something about this. So
kind of like how we also changed the Koloss.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
similar.
bringing us back to the prologue, this does kind of tie into the fear of the mists, and that the mists were originally preservation, reaching out and snapping people with that power. And then Ruin, after he was trapped, forced that power to get stronger and to attack people and actually kill them. And that's where the fear of the mist kind of comes from. In which that's how we see the, what is it, Mystic in book 3?
Yeah.
That's what's happening again.
It actually kind of makes sense, because if the various god metals are the bodies of these shard bearers, or the shards themselves, or however it
Shards.
works out, that means that the mist is basically vaporized heavy metals, so they're just getting heavy metal poisoning until they snap.
Oh, I never thought of it that way.
I thought about that the other day when I was like actually doing the reread, and I was like, wait a minute, this is metal that they're breathing. Yeah.
Nah, because they always described it as water vapor. I
They
don't know.
talk about it acting like that until,
True.
except for the fact that it never comes into buildings. So it's
And which is a really interesting thing, is that it doesn't seep into buildings, not like mist. Also, Allomancy warps around it, in which we see that with Kelsier and Tin, and how he can kind of see through mists.
I have a question. Like, is the mist investiture?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then
yeah, it is. It's keyed investiture to preservation, if I remember right.
Mhm.
Yes, it is preservation's body.
Which is why it distances around anything with a humalurgic spike, being Vin's earring when she wears it, or a Steel Inquisitor, but also kind of allows for tin to work with it. Because if you're using tin and you're looking through mist, you're just going to see mist. Instead, it allows you to see through it.
that's really cool.
I feel like
So
somebody else had a question.
I had another one. And it was just basically just like, if the mist is the investiture, if you're drawing on preservations, where's the investiture when you're burning metals? Is that the metal itself, or is it the
So-
act of burning it?
The
Go ahead.
Think it's the metal itself.
Yeah, I've
I've-
always read it as the person has like the ability to access the investiture. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Good. So it's the metal itself. The metal itself is what holds the investiture, and the act of someone snapping breaks the person's spirit web open enough for them to be able to use the investiture.
Oh,
In a sense, so that
It was when they made schedule that they invested basically the planet, which is why when in Secret History, Kelsier can literally just walk on the ground anywhere, whilst on Roshar, he's completely different.
but also Kelsier isn't he doesn't have a physical body because if you remember that in Secret History Hoyd is using a dead person's corpse as
True.
a cognitive shadow as a raft
True.
because he can't step on the ground because it's liquid to him. It's
I forgot about that.
Real quick here, just to kind of clarify a point. I've got Coppermind up here. Allomancy, instead of drawing power from the user, metal acts as a catalyst and draws power from preservation itself. So it's not the metal itself that has the investiture. It acts as kind of a key or a gateway, and I think Brandon described it as a key. Unlock the investiture directly from preservation.
But
But
the
you
key
have
only
to
works.
have the metal, but it's not the metal itself that has the investiture.
But the key only works for certain people.
Right.
so it's
the
kind of
key
like
is-
the door.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
and it's a net positive
Yeah.
Correct.
investiture system, while ferrochemy is net neutral and hemalurgy is net negative.
Because you're always losing some.
Mhm.
Yes.
Trans-
Yeah. And ferrochemy you can neither gain nor lose anything.
Mhm. Just store it and save it.
Perfect
It's-
balance.
Yep.
Is there anything else?
Something that I did notice this time around that I hadn't noticed before is there's this quote that so Kelsier thinks of this when he hears Jess's daughter screaming. He thinks that the yells reminded him of other screams, a woman's screams from the past,
Oh.
which is a reference to Mare when Mare was dying in the pits when she was being beaten, that moment when Kelsier snapped, which I
Mhm.
thought was an interesting reference that I hadn't noticed before.
Which does a snap, and I hate to get back into this. I think from that we can see that a snap does not have to be a physical thing. Like Kelsier snapped from the loss of Mare.
It just has to be a strong enough, I guess, trauma to
Mhm.
cause your spirit web to crack.
Juan,
think
do you
the
want to add
stress
anything?
of-
You can. Sorry.
Yeah, we're good. I
Juan,
think
do
the
you want
stress
to?
of working with a Steel Inquisitor would cause me to snap.
Yeah, right?
I'm sorry, reader.
No, you're fine. I was asking Juan. She's been quiet. I was trying to give her the floor to.
No, yeah, I'm trying to think of like other people that we know the snapping history of, and I think we don't actually get that many.
Let me check.
Because like that's really interesting the way Kelsier snapped. Just like I don't know, it's like unique just as Vin's one. So and because they both like held preservation at a point, I don't know if there's like a link
Mhm.
in their snapping being so unique.
We've got 4 known snappings. We've got Kelsier after Mare dies. We've got Vin being born. Then we've got Marsh snaps after his mother is taken away, and Spook snaps when he is 5
So
and barely
that's,
remember the event.
I would say, so Marsh is also another like emotionally traumatic event.
Mm-hmm.
His snapping, with their
Same
mother
thing
being
with
taken
Spook.
away.
I mean,
Yeah.
if I'm remembering correctly, Spook's parents die, or they abandon him. I think they abandon him.
No, so he had already snapped by that point in time, and then his parents find out that he can use those powers, and then they say that they're gonna kill him unless
shoot.
Clubs takes him in. Which the dad wants to just kill Spook, but the mom sent a letter to her brother, to Clubs, to say, hey, come get my son, because if you don't come get him, my husband's gonna kill him.
Mm-hmm.
Because the husband didn't want anything to deal with anyone who was who had allomancy, because he feared that because he knew that if the Inquisitors found out that Spook had powers, that they would come and kill the rest of them as well.
Mm-hmm. Which we see with Steel Inquisitors and that threat that if you do something out of line of the Lord, like birthing a half breed, Steel Inquisitors are coming to get you. And they are not nice.
So.
Oh, that's a nice photo.
Can't wait to draw them.
I can't wait to see your drawings of the Koloss. I love Koloss. I think they're one of the coolest things in the series.
It's gonna be disturbing because they always disturbed me a little bit. Just the idea of like their flesh barely hanging on.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
Grotesque.
Awesome. So why don't we, as a closing thing, because I think we're doing a little bit over an hour, which I think we all thought an hour is kind of our end thing. What was our favorite scene, comment, whatever, thus far? And we'll go back to Juan, John, K,
Okay.
and do the loop that way.
For me, it definitely has to be Kelsier smiles, which is mentioned both when he's in the plantation looking at Tresting and when he talks with Mennis, which I absolutely adore those interactions too. But yeah, it's just like so much like him. So yeah, Kelsier smiles.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I could pick a favorite thing from this bit. It's so intense. I suppose having already read everything, my favorite bit is the little pre-chapter blip, because just of the sheer volume of foreshadowing that's in that paragraph or two. That's bam, it's just right there.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I think that my favorite moment is kind of similar to Juan's, because it's also about Kelsier. It's when Kelsier is talking to Mennis, and he's just like, yeah, no, I'm a troublemaker. I'm here to stir up shit. That's what I'm here for. And it's just because it's very much, it's Kelsier. It just shows who Kelsier is. And I just think that that's just a great introduction to like who he is. Like, he's there to cause problems. Like, that's what he's there for.
My favorite was probably just the line, or the couple lines where it goes like this, like, "Men who venture into the mists lose their souls," a woman whispered. Her words raised a question. Had Kelsier walked in the mist? What then had happened to his soul? If you only knew, Kelsier thought. That was really cool.
Line.
Yeah, really sets up the horror kind of mystery of the future. I think my favorite have to be kind of like the seeing Kelsier's two sides, kind of even three, of the fact we see the thief kind of sneaking his way in. We see the troublemaker But we also see that that's kind of chess moving, getting into place, and then the bloodthirsty Mistborn that he is. And we see all of that in this prologue. In which, just
Gotcha.
looking back now, I realize we see like the three main groups of this book. We see Noblemen, we see Mistborn, and we see Ska. All in this prologue.
And we all kind of understand what they are, like, besides the specifics of what a Mistborn can do. Like, we all kind of get what those three groups are about.
Yep. Well, thank you all for watching. See you all in the next episode.
See?
Yeah.
All
You guys,
connected.
It's like
you guys are in the wrong universe right now. You're supposed to be on Scadrial, not Roshar.
Yeah, there's ash falling in where I'm living.
Yo, I was in California. I think I was still living in California like a year or 2 years ago, and the fire, because it rains fire like every year at least once.
Now there's your Ashfall.
It actually did. The sky kind of went a bit red. I went outside. Ash was falling. I'm like, this is my time. I'll get the vials. I'm putting on the costume.